Well, welcome to the post-show debrief, and we can begin with what was a day mostly of good news. The stock market rallying and rallying strongly. In fact, wiping out over the last couple of days just about all of the losses of the previous week. So that's very good news indeed. We saw crude oil prices today holding fairly stable, up about $1, but nonetheless hanging around just about $102 a barrel. Not great, but a lot better than what a lot of people had been suggesting. For my part, I've been saying those people who are talking about $120, $140 a barrel, they better start thinking again, because this administration, this government, is dealing with OPEC, and that's hardly a free market enterprise. OPEC is a cartel. It represents the producing countries. They naturally want their prices higher. We're not talking about a free market. And if the United States simply acquiesces and permits $140 a barrel, this president will understand two things very quickly. One, this economy cannot afford that kind of price increase in either crude oil or gasoline. And this president needs to understand that if prices go to $4 a gallon or slightly above, he's a one-term president. It's that simple. This economy can't afford higher energy prices. This president politically can't afford higher prices, or he will be a one-term president. He, at some point, has made a decision that he is going to emulate George W. Bush, of all people. This president has, after all of his criticism of President Bush for his conduct of the war in Iraq, for his conduct of the war in Afghanistan, has now embarked on military adventurism, there's no other word for it, in launching missile strikes and airstrikes against targets in a sovereign nation, intervening in a nation's civil war. And I have yet to hear this president to explain to the American people precisely who it is we are supporting in that civil war. What are their views? What are their beliefs? What do they intend with that government should they prevail over Muammar Gaddafi? Will this be a democracy? What would be the result of their prevailing? This is a strange, strange moment in American history. This president chose to go to the United Nations, for permission to attack a sovereign nation, instead of the United States Congress, which he is constitutionally bound to do. By the way, also by statute, something called the War Powers Act of 1973 requires him to go before the Congress and to seek congressional approval. I mean, the man he criticized for 2 wars, George Bush, did precisely that. This president has just embarked on intervention in a sovereign nation's civil war without doing the minimum requirement, which is at least seek the approval of the Congress representing the will of the American people. Better yet, how about talking to the American people about the purpose of putting American lives and our equipment, our resources, our weaponry, our material at risk? My Lord, is it really, really a necessary act to have intervened in Libya? That's going to be the question that has to be answered in the minds of most Americans, I truly believe. Well, maybe we'll get those answers. Maybe we won't. But I will say this. However that question is answered by this administration will have a large influence on the outcome of 2012 elections. Thanks for being with us for the post-show debrief. Like I say, mostly good news, some not so good. Thanks for being with us. Please join me on the Fox Business Network, 7 p.m. Eastern, each Monday through Friday for the Lou Dobbs Tonight Show. Meanwhile, see you next on the radio.